Thank you.
The economy of Francesco that I imagine is an economy that is built on inclusion,
that makes sure that everyone has a fair chance to achieve not just happiness, but rather joy.
that has as its objective the well-being of all,
because happiness is instantaneous, but joy is more sustainable.
and is an economy which is driven by young people.
Floor is yours.
And I'm happy to be part of this. I'm always happy when I see young people taking action, or when I see organizations to bring young people together, because we are the next generation, and if there's any change that's going to happen, it's going to come from us.
We try really to promote a change in our lifestyles.
And in essence, the youth demands are just finding or striking the balance between economic prosperity, environmental sustainability.
It's just not about economics per se, where we're trying to achieve growth. But over here, we're trying to see how can we achieve a development that also speaks about the people, that also speaks about the environment, and maybe that also speaks about the spirit.
At your business, you must include the environmental dimension inside immediately.
One important area should be to change our consumption behavior.
Really incorporates the environment into the entire decision-making process.
Own lens, given the diversity of it all.
About this, that a lot of people start to do things because we see other ones doing that. And
to do cleanup exercises, we help them to understand sustainability. We help them to understand the need for us to go clean, to go green. So, and Don Bosco is a faith-based organization, even though it's an NGO. So that's where I'm coming from.
Hope is not simply a better world ahead. Hope is the strength to walk through that crisis together.
Pope Francis said, "We cannot say that young people are the future of our world. They are its present."
So how can we really activate also believers, of course non-believers also, but believers to really put into practice all this integral ecology?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on reimagining development, youth perspectives for a better world. I'm Brex Arevalo of Eco Jesuit, and joining me today is Maxine Almeida from the Don Bosco Green Alliance. From August to September earlier this year, Eco Jesuit, Living Laudato Si Philippines, and the Don Bosco Green Alliance, three faith-based networks, collaborated together on a dialogue process with youth from around the world. We talked about reimagining what development means to us and how we can move towards a better world. Maxine, from your perspective, how did our dialogue process go? And what were some of your key takeaways in the process?
Well, Brex, I remember the first conversation that we had in July when you proposed that the three networks come together. That was also the first time that I heard about the economy of Francesco. And as an international global network that the Don Bosco Green Alliance is, I was really interested in this whole idea of bringing together young people from across the world so that they could share their ideas and perspectives on what development means for them. At the same time, this was also a great opportunity for our three organizations to tap into our international network and bring about a global perspective from young people from a variety of backgrounds and regions, especially from faith-based institutions. This also brings me to the theme for this event, reimagining development, youth perspectives for a better world. Rex, could you share with us how we came about this theme and what it means?
Well, a lot about this theme really centers on Laudato Si, on the SDGs, and maybe a little bit also about what we've learned during this pandemic. When we talk about development, we're slowly realizing that the message of Laudato Si, the message of the SDGs about interconnectedness, about the importance of listening, really should be paid attention to. When we talk about development, we're not merely talking about economic growth, we're also talking about social development, environmental protection, environmental regeneration, if I may say. And during this pandemic, you know, we're seeing the interconnections on the good side through Laudato Si and through the SDGs. Now with the pandemic, we're sort of seeing the bad side of our interconnections because this pandemic has really shed to light and exposed the deep-rooted ecological crises that we're facing. All of this is going hand in hand. So we're not just facing a global crisis, we're seeing a whole gamut, all interconnected together. And so what we're trying to do here, what we tried to do here in Reimagining Development, is really to talk with the different youth that participated in our event. There were around 40 youth from around the world, from each of our networks. And at the end, we came up with a document of recommendations and commitments for action. This document was really a process of listening, and we tried to take away points from each of the participants and try to include all the recommendations in there. So now, Maxon, let's hear from our participants and see what they have to say about the process they underwent, and maybe a little bit about their visions for the future ahead too.
Hi, my name is Domenica Reyes. I'm a member of the Global Catholic Climate Movement and coordinator of the Laudato Si Generation. In September, I had this huge opportunity to be part of the event Reimagining a Better World, which was a series of dialogue of conversations with different young Catholics leaders for the climate action. During these dialogues, I had this huge opportunity to learn about the different realities around the world. I'm from South America, so the perspective that I have about the climate crisis is sometimes different how it's seen in other continents such as Europe, Africa, Asia, etc. So this was an opportunity to learn and to find joint solutions that will be like a help for action for this climate crisis. First of all, I had this opportunity to learn about different realities, to see how the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor is listened in different parts of the world. During this conversation, I understand this importance of this global perspective, to have this global perspective for climate action, but to bring into local actions. To have this combination is very important because we all not share the same opportunities, the same background, the same reality, but we all can work together. In this event, during the conversations, we understood that we need this empowerment, to have this education, because for some of us it's hard to access to this education about the climate, about the environment. So it will be something that we encourage decision makers to take into consideration. Also, we call the politicians and leaders to take action, to take responsibility, and to bring these policies of hope in order to solve this climate crisis. So thanks again for this opportunity to share, and thank you for listening to us.
Good day to each and every one of you present here. I'm Joshua Martin Vaz, and I'm currently associated with the Don Bosco Youth Services, Goa, India. At first, I would just like to thank Mr. Maxon Almeida for introducing me to this event and giving me the opportunity to be a part of this event. This event has actually helped me learn much more about the environment and the different ways the planet Earth is currently suffering. Listening to the wonderful speakers and the youth give their excellent opinions about the different ways we can improve our surroundings actually ignited this spark in me. And I felt that just by doing what everyone else does won't solve the problem, and that we need to get out of our comfort zone if we really want to make a difference. This event has also helped me learn different ways we can improve our surroundings and also the few points we need to keep in mind while reimagining development. The major impact this event had on me is that it took me back to my roots and changed the definition of development for me, and made me realize that development shouldn't be called development if it doesn't take the environment into consideration. And the concept of this basically helped me bring about awareness about what my state government, that is the state government of Goa, is currently doing, which is not going to help us develop, but it will in turn destroy us, and not only us, but also our future generation. Because what they currently are doing is that they are destroying acres of land in the name of development. And lastly, my favorite takeaway from this event was one of the statements that was made by one of our participants, in which he said that we need to focus on informal education because it is at home where education starts. And if we instill in our kids the need to conserve the environment at the very start, it is then when they will be aware of the consequences, and it's then that they will be responsible citizens of tomorrow. I would like to thank the organizers and Don Bosco Green Alliance for organizing this event and having us and letting us be a part of this wonderful event. Thank you so much and God bless.
Reimagining development further concretized how the climate crisis is a moral problem and not just scientific in nature. The notion that the cry of the earth is also the cry of the poor was emphasized throughout the discussions. The poor who have less resources and capacities to adapt and be resilient to climate change impacts are also the ones who have the least contributions to greenhouse gas emissions, and yet they remain to be more vulnerable to various impacts. These impacts are exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, as pointed out by one of our speakers. Striking a balance between economic progress and environmental preservation should be met. We must not prioritize gaining profit at the great expense of the environment. If we do so, then losses will surpass benefits. In order to meet this, another speaker suggests that we complement our disapproval or our calls of no with an economy of yes. No to dirty practices, yes to cleaner alternatives. No to carbon-based fuels, yes to renewable energy. We must also have a paradigm shift towards an economy that puts the well-being of society over individual success, as mentioned by one more speaker. He added that this pandemic has provided an opportunity to rethink economic systems, and data on government response supplements this notion. It's only a matter of having the political will to do so. These systemic changes need time. But it's great that youth around the world are starting various movements. They work with grassroots communities, educate their family and friends, and mobilize society towards sustainability. However, they must have representation and a voice in decision-making processes. Lastly, these sessions cemented the faith group's roles in this regard. The values of humility and empathy were highlighted. Calls for divestment from fossil fuels were pushed, and the interconnectedness between faith and sustainability and sustainable development was formed. These are just some of the learnings we got from the speakers and among the participants themselves during the bountiful discussions. As you may have already heard, the Philippines was hit hard by 3 typhoons and 1 super typhoon in at least 3 weeks. Survivors who were just bouncing back from the previous typhoons were once again ravaged in a short amount of time. Governance lacked in mitigating climate change impacts, therefore exacerbating disasters such as flooding. Representation in key decisions was also not fully realized, and although the country is one of the least contributors to the climate crisis, it is also one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change effects, as found in various studies. With this, we are reaching out to the international community to help spread awareness of what's happening in our country. and to amplify our calls of climate justice, urgent climate action, and the declaration of a climate emergency to help people from the global south and the developing countries. Time is running out. The time to take climate action was decades ago, when the climate crisis was first identified and mainstreamed. Nonetheless, I believe that we still have time to combat the climate crisis and to take care of our common home. Thank you.
Yeah, my take is I think we all agree that change is very much necessary. We all agree on that, but we don't tend to agree on how much change do we really need at this point. For me personally, change must start at the very basic. We must start with the foundations, and that means starting even questioning definitions. For example, what I mean by this is that today we are not confronting an ecological crisis nor a social crisis. In my opinion, we are fundamentally facing the ecological and social effects of a crisis of political inequality. And this distinction, it's very important because people tend to forget that back in the day, people did not vote for the Industrial Revolution to happen. They did not vote to say goodbye to their rural world. They were expelled. They did not vote to increase their working hours 30% compared to what they did in medieval times. And they definitely did not vote to send their kids to mining. All of this was the product of political inequality, of coercion, and above all, it was a product of dispossession. And since then, despite what we might think, we have not changed a lot. After all, we still have and live by the idea that we have to earn a living. And due to this reality, the social and the ecological are often at odds with each other. Earning a living means infinite work, and infinite work means infinite production. Of course, we have created an entire culture to justify this and to reproduce this. We are talking about consumerism, and you know, and this is hardly compatible with the paradigm of sustainability. At the same time, and earning a living normal means that many remain excluded from the wealth and the productivity generated by previous human generations. And this is the fundamental cause behind what we call today the social crisis. So my point is that no one should have the right to own the product of our collective past. And this is fundamental to solving the current social crisis. So if I had to deliver a message to those gathered in Assisi, my advice would be very simple and straightforward. There are no technical or technological solutions to political problems. And we should be able to spot this reality when we discuss about economic processes.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed some of the insights and some of the sharings of our participants and got a little visualization about what went on during our dialogue process. Now, the question is, what do we do now? We have this document. We have this blueprint for action, so to speak. Maybe Maxine, you could take us through some of the points and maybe some of your insights about how we move forward.
Yes. Well, perhaps the immediate plan for us is to see how we can leverage this group of young people from different backgrounds and cultures and experiences to work together. Our idea is to form a global youth body with young people, especially from faith-based organizations, who could guide this collaboration and give us advice. I think also an important aspect would be how we could replicate these dialogues at a regional or a local level so that we could dig deeper into these recommendations and see if we could come up with systemic solutions for how we could go about bringing this paradigmatic shift in thinking about development.
That's a very important point that you raised there, Maxine, because there are certain things that can only emerge, that can only become clear when you go to the level of local, when you go to the level of regional. Global level is kind of big sometimes, and there are some specific contexts that you can only see when we dialogue with people on the ground. Now, you also mentioned over there the Global Youth Hub that we're proposing. And just to explain a little bit more about that, what we are recommending is the continuation of dialogue. That is the core of this suggestion. And we believe that with the help of the Economy of Francesco Central Committee, that if we are able to set up a global youth hub or a global youth task force of different youth representing different faiths, perhaps we can dig deeper, perhaps we can continue to discern together. And it would be great if this was formally represented and formally supported by the Vatican. This is a whole practice, a whole big proposal for networking and collaboration. And we believe that with the leadership, with the guidance of the Vatican, also with leadership of the youth, because this is for the youth, that we can get somewhere and move towards an economy of Francesco.
That's right. I'm glad you brought that up, Rex, because unfortunately, even isolationism is rearing its head again, and many countries and regions are looking at bordering up and isolating themselves from the global network. A global youth hub is important because ultimately young people look towards themselves as global citizens. And while this solidarity has not seeped into the global leadership, we are all part of one planet. That's the truth that we have to come to terms with. And the planet does not look at us on the basis of nationality or religion, but as one species. And global problems like climate change require global cooperation at an unprecedented level that has never been seen before. And we cannot isolate ourselves. So I feel a global youth hub at this moment is critical. One of the areas where the energies of our participants lie is in climate action, particularly COP26, hopefully in November. We will have this event next year, and we are keen on exploring ways to contribute to definitive climate action leading up to and during COP26 itself.
And Maxine, as you mentioned over there, COP26 and climate action, I'm just remembering here in the Philippines, we've had 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks now of different typhoons coming in, with one of them being labeled as the most powerful typhoon in all of 2020. A lot, as what's happened before, where typhoons would hit the country, it's usually the most vulnerable, it's usually the poorest who are hit the most and who suffer the most. Now in our document, we talk a little bit about this, but in terms of inequalities, in terms of the importance of, or the responsibilities of business, of education. We talked about the interconnectedness of our response to typhoons, to the environmental crisis, the ecological crisis, the economic crisis, the social crisis. And a lot of this really does depend on our collaboration. So with that, I invite everyone to please have a look at our document. It's quite comprehensive, if I may say so myself, because we try to really get the points of each of the 40 youth who participated in our process. But we try to tie everything together at the end for a more concise summary. The document will be available to the public. It can be accessed on our Facebook pages, on our websites of Eco Jesuit, of Don Bosco Green Alliance, and Living Laudato Si Philippines. I'd just like to end with a small quote from Father Savio Silvera, whose words really resonated with me on one of our sessions. And he said, "The spark has been lit, and what we need is to see the fire burning." I'd like to think that this process that we've started is that spark. Now it's up to us to continue building on that and rekindling our interconnections towards the realization of an economy of Francesco. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our session. Thank you, Rex. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.